Revenge with Karen.
The air in the server room always smelled like ozone and burnt dust, a perfume I'd worn for 12 years like a second skin. It was the smell of keeping the lights on. It was the smell of billions of dollars in insurance claims flowing through copper and fiber, ensuring that when Mrs. Higgins in Florida lost her roof to a hurricane, she got paid before the mold set in. I liked that smell. It was honest. Unlike the scent of Taryn's perfume, which hit me the second I walked into the Monday morning sync-up. It smelled like vanilla, desperation, and a trust fund that had never known the indignity of a declined debit card. I sat at the far end of the mahogany table, my laptop covered in stickers from vendors that didn't exist anymore, battle scars from the tech wars of 2015. Taryn, the CEO's daughter-in-law and newly minted VP of Innovation, stood at the head of the table. He was wearing one of those blazers with the sleeves rolled up to show off a watch that cost more than my entire 401k. She looked like a stock photo of businesswoman leading, only with less soul and more teeth. "So, team," Taryn chirped, her voice hitting a frequency that I'm pretty sure was designed to sterilize frogs. "We've been looking at the Q3 efficiency metrics, and frankly, the legacy systems are heavy. They're dragging down our vibe. Need agility. We need blockchain synergy. We need to pivot to a cloud-native, AI-driven ecosystem." I took a slow sip of my lukewarm vending machine coffee. It tasted like battery acid and regret, but it was the only thing keeping my eyes open after a weekend spent patching a security hole the size of Texas that the previous innovation team had left wide open. "Taryn," I said, my voice raspy. I didn't raise my hand. I hadn't raised my hand in this building since the Obama administration. "The legacy system you're talking about is the claims processing backbone. It's not heavy, it's robust. It handles 40,000 concurrent transactions a second. If you pivot that to the cloud without a 3-year migration plan, you won't get synergy. You'll get a class action lawsuit." Taryn's smile didn't falter, but her eyes glazed over. It was the look of someone who heard technical mumbo-jumbo instead of warning. "Cliff ahead." She clicked a button on her clicker, and the slide changed. The screen displayed an org chart. My box, the one labeled Senior Systems Architect, was gone. In its place was a box labeled Legacy Consultant, Transitionary. By the way, if you've ever had a boss try to explain your own job to you using words they learned on TikTok, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and give this story a like. It helps the algorithm find the other corporate survivors out there, and frankly, it keeps me from throwing my monitor through the window. Now, back to the train wreck. "Actually, Linda, that's exactly what we wanted to discuss," Taryn said, her voice dripping with that sickeningly sweet corporate poison. "We feel that your skill set is incredibly valuable for the past, but for the future, bringing in some fresh energy. I'd like you to meet Kyle." The door opened, and in walked a guy who looked like he'd just parked his electric scooter in the lobby. He was wearing a t-shirt under a suit jacket, the uniform of the I Have an App Idea Brigade. Kyle. Of course his name was Kyle. He looked like he thought SQL was a sequel to a movie he hadn't seen. "Kyle and I went to business school together," Taryn beamed. "Did an incredible PowerPoint on blockchain logistics in his sophomore year. He's going to be our new lead tech evangelist. He'll be taking over the architecture strategy effective immediately." The room went silent. The other engineers, Davos, Sarah, and Mike, stared at their laps. They knew. They knew that putting Kyle in charge of the claims backbone was like handing a toddler a loaded shotgun and asking him to perform delicate neurosurgery. But they had mortgages, had kids who needed braces. They stayed quiet. I looked at Kyle. "Nice to meet you," he said, extending a hand that felt soft like he used lotion made from unicorn tears. "I'm really excited to disrupt this space." "Disrupt," I repeated, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. "Kyle, do you know what happens if the claims backbone goes down for more than an hour?" He blinked. "We reboot?" "No," I said, leaning forward. "If the system goes down for an hour, reinsurers, the massive global banks that back our policies, trigger a penalty clause. We lose about $6 million an hour. If it's down for 4 hours, the state insurance commissioners in 50 states get an automatic alert. That triggers audits. If it's down for a day, we are in breach of federal contract during disaster scenarios. People don't get money to fix their houses. Hospitals don't get pre-auths for surgeries. People die, Kyle. Don't disrupt the claims system. We keep it alive." Taryn let out a sharp, dismissive laugh. "Oh, Linda, you're always so dramatic. This is exactly why we need a culture shift. You're operating from a place of fear. Kyle operates from a place of possibility. I sat back. My blood was boiling, a low, thrumming rage that started in my stomach and worked its way up to my jaw. I had spent 12 years missing Christmases, working through vacations, answering pages at 3 a.m. to keep this company afloat. I had written the code that saved their asses during the ransomware scare of 19. I was the reason the CEO, Taran's father-in-law, could afford his third yacht. And now, I was being put out to pasture for a guy who probably thought the cloud was actual water vapor. So, Taran continued, checking her expensive watch. We're going to need you to hand over all admin keys and documentation to Kyle by the end of the week. We want a smooth transition before your end date, which HR has set for the 30th. Obsolescence. That's what they called it. I wasn't being fired for cause. I was being sunsetted, like an old version of Windows. I looked at Taran. I looked at Kyle. And then, a strange calm washed over me. It was the calm of a bomb disposal technician who realizes they cut the wrong wire. But the timer hasn't hit 0 yet. Sure, I said, forcing a smile that felt like cracking dry clay. A smooth transition. Absolutely. I'll get everything ready. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to beg. Because what Taran didn't know, what nobody in this room knew, was that the claim's backbone wasn't just a pile of code. It was a living, breathing beast. I was the only one who knew how to feed it. If they wanted the keys to the cage, I'd give them the keys. But I wasn't going to tell them that the lion inside hadn't eaten in days. As the meeting dispersed, Taran leaned over to Kyle and whispered loud enough for me to hear. See? I told you she'd be difficult. Old guard, no vision. I packed up my laptop. My hands were steady. My heart was a cold stone in my chest. You want vision, Taran, I thought. Walking out of the glass-walled aquarium they called a conference room. I'll show you a vision. I'll show you what the world looks like when the lights go out. The rest of the week was a blur of passive-aggressive emails and meetings that could have been emails, but weren't, because Taran needed an audience. HR had scheduled my exit interview before I had even transferred a single file. They sent me a calendar invite titled, Linda's Next Chapter Celebration, the party popper emoji. It took every ounce of self-control I possessed not to reply with the emoji of a dumpster fire. My office, a small, windowless box near the server farm that I had fought to keep because it was quiet, became a revolving door of indignity. Kyle would roll in on his scooter, laptop open, asking questions that made my brain hurt. So, Linda, he said on Tuesday, chewing on a pen cap. Where do we keep the GitHub repo for the mainframers? It's not on GitHub, Kyle, I said, not looking up from my screen where I was quietly archiving my personal correspondence. It's an internal SVN server, because the data contains HIPAA-protected medical records and social security numbers. Putting that on a public cloud repo would be a federal crime. Right, totally, he nodded, clearly not writing that down. But can we move it to GitHub? The UI is so much cleaner. Sure, Kyle, I said, my voice flat. You can do whatever you want after the 30th. He left, looking satisfied. He didn't ask for the encryption keys. He didn't ask about the load balancers. He didn't ask about the automated cron jobs that ran every night at 2 a.m. to reconcile the bank transfers. He just wanted to know if the interface could be dark mode. Wednesday was worse. Taran marched into my office with her phone already recording. Hey guys, he said to her phone screen, doing that fake influencer wave. I'm here with Linda, one of our beloved veterans. We're so sad to see her go, but so excited for her retirement journey. Linda, say hi to the LinkedIn fam. She shoved the phone in my face. I looked at the camera. I looked at her. I hadn't washed my hair in 2 days because I'd been up late downloading 12 years of my own performance reviews and system logs onto an encrypted drive. I looked like a witch who lived under a bridge. Hi, I said, I'm not retiring. My position was eliminated to make room for a sophomore with a blockchain PowerPoint. Taran froze. She cut the recording so fast I thought she might crack her screen. Linda, she hissed, her smile dropping like a guillotine. We are trying to do something nice for you. We are trying to control the narrative. Do you want a severance package or not? Because the NDA you signed requires professional conduct during the transition period. I'm being professional, I said, turning back to my monitor. I'm just being accurate. You like data, right, Taran? That was a data point. She huffed and stormed out, her heels clicking like angry gunshots on the linoleum. By Thursday, I noticed my access was already getting stripped. I went to log into the Tier 1 admin console, God mode dashboard that let me see everything happening in real time, and got a permission denied error. Permission denied. I stared at the red text. 12 years. I built that dashboard. I wrote the code that generated the error message. And now, some junior sysadmin in the basement, probably acting on Taran's orders, had unchecked the box next to my name. It stung. It felt like coming home and finding out your key no longer fit the lock, looking through the window to see a stranger eating your dinner. But here's the thing about people like Taran and Kyle. They think access is a checkbox. They think power is a title on a business card. They don't understand that true power in a system this complex isn't given, it's built. I didn't need the Tier 1 admin console. I had something better. Years ago, during a massive system migration, the previous CTO, a man who actually knew how to code, had authorized me to build a shadow monitor. It was a redundancy tool, a backdoor designed to bypass the main login servers in case of a catastrophic cyber attack. It was hidden deep in the codebase, disguised as a printer driver utility. It had direct, read-write access to the claims queue, bypassing the GUI entirely. It was my ghost key. I opened a command prompt. I typed in a string of commands that looked like gibberish to the untrained eye. Unspooler v2k silent, the screen flickered. A plain black window with green text popped up. No fancy graphics, no dark mode, just raw streaming data. Connection established. User, root, I was in. I checked the logs. Kyle had been busy. He'd been granting admin rights to random developers, turning off firewalls because they were slowing down the testing environment, and I gasped. He had disabled the double-check protocol. Double-check protocol was a script I wrote 5 years ago. It forced every claim over $50,000 to be verified by a secondary server in a different state before payment was released. It was the only thing stopping a hacker from draining the company accounts in 10 minutes. Kyle had turned it off. The log note said, "Removed bottleneck for agile throughput." "Oh, you sweet summer child," I whispered to the screen. He hadn't just unlocked the door. He had taken the door off the hinges and put up a free money sign. I could have fixed it. I could have sent an email. I could have stormed into Taran's office and screamed that they were sitting on a ticking time bomb. But then I remembered the way Taran looked at me during the sync-up. Obsolete, heavy, dragging down the vibe. I didn't re-enable the protocol. Instead, I wrote a small script. A simple logic loop. Said if user Linda H is not found in Active Directory, initiate sequence good luck dad. I saved the script. I buried it deep in the kernel of the shadow monitor. Friday was my last day. They had bought a grocery store sheet cake that said good luck in smeared blue icing. Kyle ate 2 pieces. Taran didn't show up. I packed my box. I took my stapler. I took my framed photo of my dog. As I walked to the elevator, Kyle jogged up to me. "Hey, Linda, quick question. The password for the master encryption key, Taran said you wrote it down." I looked at him. I smiled. It was the first genuine smile I'd had all week. "It's in the documentation, Kyle," I lied, under D for disaster. "Awesome, thanks. Enjoy retirement." He trotted back to the server room, my server room. I stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the lobby. The doors closed, sealing off the cool, ozone-scented air of the 14th floor. I checked my watch. The script was live. The system was waiting. The first Monday after I was sunsetted felt like playing hooky from school, if school was a high-security prison where the warden wore Prada. I sat at my kitchen table, wearing sweatpants that had never seen a yoga studio, drinking coffee that was actually hot. My laptop was open, but not for work. I was browsing LinkedIn, watching the train wreck in slow motion from the safety of my breakfast nook. Erin had posted a photo. Of course she had. It was her, Kyle, and the CEO, her father-in-law, a man whose understanding of technology ended at how to open a PDF, all standing in front of a giant screen displaying a dashboard. The caption read, "New era. Rocket Our innovation team just launched the alpha version of the Smart Claims dashboard. Say goodbye to legacy drag and hello to the future. #disruption, #women in tech, #blockchain." I zoomed in on the photo. The dashboard on the screen behind them was pretty. It had swooping graphs and 3D pie charts. It was blue and silver. It looked like the control panel of a spaceship in a sci-fi movie. But then I looked closer. In the bottom right corner of their fancy dashboard, there was a tiny, red blinking light. It was barely visible, obscured by Taran's shoulder, but I knew what it was. It was the queue latency warning. Pretty dashboard was just a skin. A user interface slapped on top of the old system like lipstick on a pig. But underneath, the engine was coughing. That little red light meant that claims were starting to pile up. The agile throughput Kyle was so proud of was actually causing a memory leak. The system was accepting claims faster than it could process them, and instead of slowing down, which my safety protocols used to do, it was just holding them. A waiter taking orders but never walking to the kitchen. "You idiots," I muttered, biting into a piece of toast. "You're celebrating a clog. I could have called." I still had the number for the network operations center knock. I knew the guys down there, Dave, Sam, the night crew. If I called Dave and said, "Hey, flush the cache on server 4, he would have done it. He would have saved them. But my phone lay silent on the table. Later that afternoon, my phone actually did buzz. Wasn't the NOC. It was Brenda from accounting. Brenda was one of the good ones. She had been there almost as long as I had, and we shared a mutual hatred for team-building exercises involving trust falls. "Linda," she whispered. She sounded like she was hiding in a closet. "Are you seeing this?" "Seeing what, Brenda? I'm unemployed. I'm seeing the price is right reruns." "The system," she said. "It's weird. I'm trying to cut checks for the Midwest region. System says processing, but nothing is printing, and the status bar is just spinning. It's been spinning for 2 hours. Did you put in a ticket?" I asked, leaning back in my chair. "I did," she said. Kyle closed it. He marked it as user error/network latency. He replied saying, "The new dashboard is resource intensive. Please be patient." "Linda, I have vendors screaming at me. The auto body shops in the state haven't been paid in 3 days. 3 days? I sat up. "Brenda, are you sure?" "Yes. And when I asked Taryn, she said we're experiencing growing pains from the upgrade and that I need to trust the process." Trust the process. The corporate equivalent of shut up and drown. "Brenda," I said softly, "do not approve manual overrides, whatever you do. If the system isn't printing checks, do not write them by hand." "Why?" "Because if the system is lagging that bad, it means the database isn't locking the records. If you write a manual check, then the system finally catches up and prints the automated check. You'll pay everyone twice. And then you will go to jail for embezzlement, not Taryn." There was a silence on the line. "Oh my God, keep your head down, Brenda. Document everything. Print your emails." I hung up. The rot was spreading faster than I thought. Kyle had removed the bottlenecks, thinking they were obstacles. He didn't understand that a dam isn't an obstacle to the river. It's the only thing keeping the valley from flooding. I looked back at the LinkedIn post. The comments were full of sycophants. "So inspiring, great leadership. Love the vibe." They were clapping while the ship took on water. I decided to check my shadow monitor one more time. Just a peek, I ran the command. The black window opened. The numbers were escalating. Pending claims, 4,500, 5,200, 6,100. Latency was climbing. 200 ms, 500 ms, 1,200 ms. And then I saw it. A new log entry from Kyle's account. Command, flush logs/force. My eyes widened. He was trying to fix the lag by deleting the history logs. He thought the logs were taking up space. He didn't know that the logs were tied to the audit trail required by the reinsurers. He had just deleted the digital proof of every transaction for the last 48 hours. He didn't just clog the pipe. He just erased the map of where the pipes went. I closed the laptop. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from adrenaline. This wasn't a glitch anymore. This was a catastrophe. And Taryn was probably at a celebratory lunch, ordering a kale salad, completely unaware that she had just become the captain of the Titanic 5 minutes after hitting the iceberg. I poured myself a glass of cheap Chardonnay. It was 2:00 p.m. To the new era, I toasted to my empty kitchen. Tuesday morning, I was gardening, or aggressively pulling weeds while imagining they were Kyle's man bun. My phone rang again. This time, the caller ID made me pause. Marcus Compliance. Marcus wasn't a friend, exactly. It was more like a fellow soldier in the trenches. He was the chief risk officer, a man who wore suspenders not as a fashion statement, but because he carried the weight of federal regulations on his shoulders. He had zero sense of humor and a terrifying memory for statutes. "Linda," his voice was gravel. "No pleasantries. I'm looking at the quarterly disaster recovery update, the failover protocol list." "Okay," I said, wiping dirt on my sweatpants. "What about it?" "Your name is gone." "Well, yeah, Marcus. I was fired, or sorry, sunsetted. Taryn doesn't need legacy consultants for the new vibe. Linda, listen to me, Marcus snapped, which was out of character. He usually spoke in paragraphs of legalese. I don't care about the HR nonsense. I care about the chain of trust. The state of California requires by law. We have a designated primary technical contact with at least 10 years of system architecture experience listed on the DR manifest in case of a seismic event. If an earthquake hits and the San Diego server farm goes dark, someone has to manually authorize the DNS switch to the Virginia backup. So, I asked, though I knew the answer. Who is listed? Kyle. I laughed, a sharp, barking sound that scared a robin out of the birdbath. Kyle, Marcus. Kyle thinks DNS is a supplement for bodybuilders. It's not funny, Marcus said. I called him. I asked him to verify his encryption key for the California node. Do you know what he said? Tell me. He said, we're moving away from keys. We're using biometric trust. Linda, we don't have biometric trust. We have 256-bit RSA keys on a physical USB drive that was in your safe. Yeah, I said. I left the safe open. Drive is there? Labeled do not lose. It's gone, Marcus said. I checked. Taryn had the office cleared out to make it a meditation pod. The safe was hauled out to the recycling center. My stomach dropped. The physical keys. The hard-coded access tokens for the backup servers. They were gone, recycled. Probably crushed into a cube of scrap metal by now. So, I said slowly, if California goes down, Marcus finished, cannot route traffic to Virginia. The claims stop, the payments stop. We are in violation of the State Department of Insurance regulations in 12 states. We lose our license to operate. Did you tell Taryn? I tried. Marcus sounded defeated. I walked into her office. She told me I was being negative. She said the new cloud system auto-heals. She used the phrase self-repairing ecosystem. Linda, does the system auto-heal? Marcus, I said. System is written in COBOL and wrapped in Java. It doesn't heal. It holds grudges. I'm documenting this, Marcus said. I'm sending a formal memo to the board. But, Linda, if this goes south, they're going to blame you. They'll say you didn't leave the keys. Let them try, I said, my voice hardening. I have a signed receipt from HR for office contents. And I have the logs of Taryn ordering the cleaning crew. If they want to play that game, bring a lawyer who eats compliance officers for breakfast. No offense. None taken, just be ready. He hung up. I stood in my garden looking at the marigolds. The sun was shining, but the world felt darker. They hadn't just fired me. They had dismantled the safety net for millions of people. Somewhere in San Diego, a server rack was humming, completely unaware that its lifeline had been thrown in a dumpster to make room for a beanbag chair. Went back inside and opened the shadow monitor. The latency was up to 2400 ms. The error logs were scrolling so fast they were a blur. Error, database lock, error, transaction timeout, error, key validation failed. And then I saw the weather report on the TV in the background. Breaking news, wildfires spreading rapidly in Southern California. Evacuation orders in effect for San Diego County. I froze. San Diego, the primary data center. Power grids were being shut down to prevent more fires. The servers were running on backup generators. But if the AC failed or the generators ran out of fuel, the system would try to fail over to Virginia. It would look for the keys that were in a landfill. It would ask Kyle for authorization. And Kyle would be trying to log in with a password he didn't have, to a system he didn't understand. The clock wasn't ticking anymore. It was hammering. I reached for my phone to call the NOC. I had to. I couldn't let innocent people lose their insurance coverage in the middle of a fire just because Taryn was an idiot. But my finger hovered over the call button. If I saved them now, they'd never learn. Taryn would spin it. She'd say her team handled the crisis. She'd take the credit. And 6 months from now, when the next disaster hit, they'd be just as vulnerable and I'd be forgotten. Sometimes, have to let the fever break before the patient can heal. I put the phone down. Burn, I whispered. I couldn't sleep. The glow of the shadow monitor was the only light in the living room. It was 3:00 a.m. The San Diego fires were getting worse. The news showed orange skies and burning hills. My heart ached for the people losing their homes. I knew what was coming for them. They would file a claim on their app, expecting help, expecting money for a hotel, for clothes, for food. They would get a connection error. I paced the floor. The ghost of 2016 haunted me. That year, a Russian ransomware gang had hit our email servers. They locked up everything. The CEO, Taryn's father-in-law, had been sweating through his suit, asking if we should pay the $5 million in Bitcoin. I had looked him in the eye and said no. Give me 6 hours. I didn't sleep for 3 days. I rewrote the handshake protocols from scratch, isolated the infected nodes, and surgically removed the malware line by line. I saved the company $50 million and its reputation. I did it on caffeine and spite. And for that, I got a plastic plaque that said Employee of the Month. Now, that same CEO allowed his daughter-in-law to treat me like expired milk. I opened my laptop browser. Taryn had shared a link earlier that day. She was a guest on a podcast called Disruptor. I clicked play. So Taryn, how do you handle the pushback from the old boys club in tech when you're trying to innovate? Taryn's voice, smooth and confident. Oh, it's constant. You have these legacy employees who are just addicted to complexity. They hoard knowledge to make themselves feel important. I had to let go of a senior architect this week because she just couldn't grasp the concept of simplified workflow. She wanted to keep us in the Stone Age. It was hard. Leadership is about making the tough calls to clear the dead wood. Dead wood. She called me dead wood. While I was sitting here, watching her system flatline, debating whether to save her career. The rage that hit me was cold. It wasn't the hot, messy anger of before. This was absolute zero. It crystallized everything. She didn't just fire me. She insulted my craft. She insulted the 12 years of life I poured into those servers. I looked at the shadow monitor. San Diego data center was struggling. The internal temperatures were rising. The backup generators were vibrating the racks. The automated failover sequence was pinging the system, asking for permission to switch to Virginia. Request, failover auth status, pending, status, pending. It was waiting for the key that didn't exist. In about 12 hours, the generators would run dry or the heat would trip the thermal breakers. The San Diego node would die. The system would try to jump to Virginia, fail the handshake, and lock down. Global hard stop. I could patch it. I could write a bypass script right now, inject it through my back door, and force the Virginia node to accept the traffic without the key. I could do it in 10 minutes, but I wouldn't. Instead, I wrote one last command, a modification to my good luck dad script. I set a timer. Not for the system, but for me. I programmed the shadow monitor to detect the exact moment the San Diego node sent its final fatal error signal. When that signal hit, my script would do one thing. It would lock my back door from the inside. It would sever my own connection, deleting the shadow monitor tool entirely from their servers. It would leave no trace that I was ever there. No trace that I could have helped. And then, it would display a message on the main admin console, message only Taryn and Kyle would see. I typed the message into the command line, system halted. Restore requires legacy admin auth. Call Linda. I hesitated. Was I really going to hold the company hostage? No, I wasn't holding them hostage. I was charging them a consulting fee. A very, very steep consulting fee. I hit enter. The script was armed. Deadwood, I said to the podcast host's voice. Watch how fast deadwood burns. I closed the laptop, went to the fridge. I took out the bottle of sriracha. I didn't replace anyone's collagen with it. That was a petty fantasy. But I did put a generous amount on my scrambled eggs. I ate them slowly. I needed my strength. Today was going to be a busy day. Wednesday, the day of the San Diego crisis, though they didn't know it yet. I had to go back to the office to sign the final NDA and hand over my physical badge. HR insisted on it. Closure, they called it. I walked onto the 14th floor at 10 o'clock a.m. The vibe was manic. People were running around. Phones were ringing more than usual. The smart claims dashboard on the big screens was lagging, the graph stuttering. Kyle was sweating. He was standing at a standing desk, furiously typing. Why is the latency so high? He was muttering. I added more RAM to the virtual machine. I walked past him. He didn't even see me. I went to Taryn's office. He was on a video call, looking perfect, laughing. She waved me in, signaling for me to wait. Exactly. We're trimming the fat, she said to the screen. She hung up and turned to me. Linda, you brought the badge? I did. I placed the plastic card on her glass desk. Great, and the NDA signed. I placed the paper on top of the badge. Taryn picked up the badge and dropped it into her trash can. A small, performative gesture. Well, I'd say we'll miss you, but honestly, Kyle has really stepped up. The transition has been seamless. I looked at the big screen on her wall. It showed the San Diego node status. It was yellow, bordering on red. Seamless, I repeated. Taryn, have you checked the thermal logs for San Diego? She sighed. Oh my God, Linda. Stop. You don't work here anymore. Stop trying to create problems to make yourself relevant. It's pathetic. I'm not creating problems, I said, my voice low and steady. I'm reading the dashboard you paid for. San Diego is overheating. It's about to fail over. So, it fails over. That's what the cloud does. It can't fail over, I said. You threw away the keys. Remember the meditation pod? Taryn stood up. Get out. You are disrupting my energy. You are officially banned from the premises. If you're not gone in 5 minutes, I'm calling security. I looked at her. I looked at the screen. The yellow bar turned red. Critical warning, thermal shutdown imminent. It was happening earlier than I thought. I looked at my watch. The script I wrote required about 25 minutes to fully propagate and lock the system once the crash started. You don't need to call security, I said. I reached into my purse and pulled out an envelope. I placed it on the desk. What is this? She asked. My consulting rates, I said, and a warning. I don't need your warning. You have 25 minutes, I said. Till what? Until no one can file a single claim. Until the reinsurers get the downtime alert. Until your father-in-law gets a call from the state of California asking why disaster victims can't access their funds. Taryn laughed. It was a nervous laugh, but she committed to it. You are delusional, get out. I turned and walked to the door. I stopped and looked back. Tell your reinsurers and DAD I said good luck. I walked out onto the floor. Kyle was hitting his monitor. Why won't it sync? Why won't it sync? I walked to the elevator. I pressed the down button. As the doors opened, I heard a sound I hadn't heard in years. The klaxon. The physical alarm in the server room that indicated a catastrophic hardware failure. Whoop, whoop, heads popped up from cubicles. Kyle froze. Taryn's door opened. What is that noise? She screamed. Turn it off. I stepped into the elevator and let the doors close on the chaos. 25 minutes. I walked out of the building into the bright sunshine. I felt lighter. I went to the diner across the street, Joe's Greasy Spoon. I ordered a coffee and a slice of cherry pie. I sat by the window where I had a perfect view of the office building. I checked my watch. 10:15 a.m. At 10:40 a.m., the lights on the 14th floor flickered, and then my phone started to buzz. The first text came from Brenda in accounting. Brenda, OMG. Screens are black. Kyle is crying, literal tears. I took a bite of my pie. It was canned filling, too sweet, but it tasted like victory. The second text was from Marcus, the compliance officer. Marcus, San Diego is dark. Virginia rejected the handshake. We are dead in the water. We are legally exposed. I'm resigning. I sipped my coffee. Across the street, I could see movement in the windows of the 14th floor. It looked like an ant farm that had been kicked over. People were pacing, waving arms. Then the diner TV changed channels. Breaking news update. Insurance giant Sure Life reporting nationwide outage. Disaster victims in California reporting inability to access funds during evacuation. That was fast. Twitter or X, whatever moves faster than light. My phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. Unknown number. Voicemail. Then, a text from a number I recognized was the CEO's personal cell. Dad, CEO, pick up the phone, Linda. I ignored it. I wasn't an employee. I was a customer eating pie. Inside the building, the panic was mutating. I could imagine the scene because I knew the system. When the Virginia node rejected the failover, it would have defaulted to the safe mode. Safe mode locks the database to prevent corruption. It means nobody can write data. No new claims. No checks printed. No approvals. Because Kyle had removed the safety checks, the system didn't just lock. It panicked. It was likely stuck in a reboot loop trying to restart thousands of times a second, frying the CPUs. My phone rang again. Taryn. I looked at the screen. I watched it ring until it stopped. Then a text, please pick up. We have a situation. I replied, I'm sorry, I'm currently transitioning to my next chapter. Please submit a ticket. 2 minutes later, I saw Taryn run out of the building. She was on her phone, looking frantic. She was looking around the parking lot, probably for my car. She didn't look at the diner. She didn't think I'd be eating pie across the street. She thought I was at home, crying. She spotted Kyle running out after her. He looked pale. He was shouting something. Taryn screamed back at him. It was like a silent movie of a breakup, but the relationship was between competence and employment. My phone rang again. Dad, CEO. I picked up this time. Hello, Linda, the CEO's voice was shaking. We have a systemic halt. The reinsurers are calling me. The governor of California is on hold. Fix it. I can't, sir, I said politely. I don't work there, I was sunsetted. Deadwood, remember? Linda, stop playing games. Taryn says you sabotaged the code. Taryn threw away the encryption keys, sir. I warned her. I warned Kyle. Marcus warned them. Deleted the DR list. This isn't sabotage. This is negligence. I don't care whose fault it is, he roared. I am losing $10 million an hour, fix it. I can't fix it without access, I said, and I don't have access. And frankly, my consulting rate is quite high. Name your price. I don't want money, Robert. I used his first name. It stopped him cold. I want a meeting, in person, with you, Taryn, and General Counsel. Right now, where are you? I'm at Joe's, across the street. Come have some pie. I'm coming. He hung up. I saw the CEO storm out of the lobby. He grabbed Taryn by the arm. She looked shocked and pointed at the diner. She shook her head. He pointed again, harder. They started walking toward me. The pie was gone, but the show was just starting. The bell on the diner door jingled. The waitress, Marge, looked up, surprised to see a man in a $5,000 suit and a woman who looked like she was about to vomit walking into her establishment. Robert, the CEO, slid into the booth opposite me. Taryn stood at the edge of the table, arms crossed, looking furious and terrified. Sit down, Taryn, Robert barked. She sat. She refused to look at me. Fix it, Robert said, now. I can't just fix it, I said, leaning back. The system has locked down. Requires a manual override of the encryption protocols. Which, as I mentioned, Taryn recycled. We can recover the keys. Taryn snapped. I called the waste management company. They were incinerated yesterday, Taryn, I said. I checked their schedule. Robert put his head in his hands, so we're dead. The company is dead. Not necessarily, I said. I have a backup. Robert's head snapped up. What? I kept a copy of the master keys on an encrypted drive, my personal possession. Because I knew this day would come. Maybe not this fast, but I knew. Give it to me, Taryn demanded, holding out her hand. I laughed. No. Linda, Robert said, his voice dangerous. That is company property. You are stealing. Actually, I said, pulling out a folded piece of paper, the envelope I had tried to give Taryn earlier. According to the exit agreement Taryn made me sign, the personal devices removed from the office are my sole property. The drive is my personal device. The data on it is, let's call it intellectual leverage. What do you want? Robert asked. Double your salary? Triple? I don't want a salary, I said. I don't want to be an employee. I want to be an external consultant. Fine. Done. Here are my terms. I slid the napkin across the table. I had written on it in blue pen. 1. Contractor rate, $400/hour. Minimum 6-month retainer paid upfront. 2. Full autonomy. No reporting to the innovation department. 3. Immediate termination of the VP of Innovation and the lead tech evangelist for gross negligence. Robert read the napkin. He looked at Taryn. You can't be serious, Taryn shrieked. Dad, she's blackmailing us. You can't fire me. I'm family. You cost me $50 million in 2 hours, Taryn. Robert shouted, slamming his hand on the table. The silverware rattled. You threw away the keys. You hired a child to run the backbone. You fired the only person who knew how it worked. He turned to me. He looked old, defeated. Taryn is family, he said quietly. I can't just fire her. Then I can't fix the system, I said. Because if I fix it, she'll just break it again next week to make a TikTok about it. I won't put my name on that. I stood up. Good luck with the governor, Robert. I hear the fines for insurance negligence are brutal this time of year. I started to walk away. Wait, Robert yelled. I stopped. Done, he said. She's out. Kyle is out. Fix it, Dad, Taryn wailed. Get out of my sight, Taryn, Robert hissed. Go home. Don't come back to the office. Taryn looked at him, then at me. Her face crumpled. She wasn't the powerful executive anymore. It was just a spoiled kid who broke a toy she couldn't afford to replace. She stormed out of the diner, sobbing. Robert looked at me. Are we good? One more thing, I said. I want Marcus reinstated, with a raise, and Brenda gets a bonus for emotional distress. Robert sighed. Fine, just, please, turn the lights back on. I reached into my bag and pulled out my laptop. I need a Wi-Fi connection, I said, and another slice of pie. I connected to the diner's spotty Wi-Fi. It wasn't secure, but I tunneled in through my VPN. I inserted the USB drive, the one I had kept in my pocket the whole time. I opened the terminal, initiating remote admin override. The system fought me for a second. It was in a death spiral, churning through error loops. I had to force-feed it the encryption key. Key accepted. Bypassing San Diego node, rerouting to Virginia. Handshake successful. The diner TV, the news banner was still flashing crisis at SureLife. I typed the final command sequence. Restart services /all/priority high. I hit enter. Across the street, I watched the building. For a long minute, nothing happened. Robert was staring at my screen, holding his breath. Then, the lights on the 14th floor stopped flickering. My phone buzzed, a text from Brenda. Brenda, the screens, they're green, the queue is moving. OMG, Linda, are you magic? I turned the laptop screen to Robert. Status, online, claims processing, active, throughput 12,000/sec. Robert slumped against the booth seat. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. It's done, I said. The Virginia node has the load. San Diego is offline but safe. You can rebuild it properly, without the innovation. Thank you, he whispered. Don't thank me, I said, closing the laptop. Just pay the invoice. I stood up. I'm going home to nap. I'll be in tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Not 9 o'clock. And I want my old office back, the one with no windows. I walked out of the diner. The aftermath was predictable. Taryn's firing was framed as a strategic restructuring. Kyle pursued other opportunities. I heard he's working at a vape shop now. I went back to work as a consultant. I sit in my dark office. I smell the ozone. I watch the logs. The new innovation VP is a woman named Sarah. She's boring. She wears cardigans. She asks me before she touches anything. We get along great. Sometimes, late at night, I look at the Good Luck Dad script still sitting in my archive folder. I didn't delete it. I keep it there, just in case. Because in this world, nobody respects the plumber until the toilet explodes. And I am the best plumber in the goddamn state. I took a sip of my lukewarm coffee. It tasted perfect. System normal. You're the real stars of the corporate jungle. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe, or I'll flick the switch on your old cubicle memories.